Another small example of the Rebbe's Hagoyes and the Rebbe's Diyuk and Lekutei Sichos that has a shaykhis to Parsha Kisiso. Has a shaykhis to the posik where it says in Kisiso, Kapitel Lamed Beis, posik Beis and Gimel, where it says that Aaron said to them, Pirko nizme hazov asher ba'oznen nesheichem bneichem and neseichem, take off the golden earrings that are in the ears of your wives, your sons and your daughters, v'haviyu alayim, bring to me. And the next posuk says, "Vayispor kol ha'omes nizmei azov asher bo'azneim," that they took off, the whole nation took off the golden earrings that's on their ears. And the way Rashi explains that they took off the rings from their own ears. Aaron thought that he would tell them to take off from the earrings of the ears of the wives and the children, boys and the girls, the sons and the daughters. They took it off themselves. So this Rashi and this psukim and this Rashi, the Rebbe uses to bring a raya to something that he writes in the Sichos in Parsha Mishpatim in Chelik Yud Aleph. There, the Rebbe brings a question. Why is there a punishment of piercing the ear of the person who wants to stay as an Eved Ivri over the 6 years? L'chura, he didn't do anything so terrible. If he was an Eved Ivri because he stole and the Bezdin sold him, well, usually a person steals because he doesn't have any food, doesn't have any money. Even if it's a person who sold himself, it's also because he was poor. So why do we give him such a terrible punishment to make a hole in his ear? So the Rebbe said, by the Fabrengen, when he said that Sicha, he said, so obviously we have to say that the opposite, that it's not such a terrible punishment. It's a small punishment. And based on the way the Rebbe said it then, in the Sicha that was given into the Rebbe, this is the words that it said there. That Tzorech Leimer, we have to say, that because this is not such a bad Aveda that he did, that this is the reason why the Torah chose Bochra Torah lahanishe be'einish bilti rogil kazeh. This is the reason why the Torah chose to punish him with such an unusual punishment. Mikiv mishazehu einish hayeser kal, because this is the lightest punishment. And the Torah commanded to pierce his ear, because through this his body will not be harmed. As we see physically, that women pierce their ears willingly, from their own will, to put golden jewelry into the ear, and it doesn't hurt the body. That's how it was written before. So here the Rebbe changed. And the Rebbe wrote, instead of the way it was written before, that this is Einesh Hayoser Kal, a punishment that's the lightest, the Rebbe changed it to Einesh Kal B'Yoser, a punishment that's very light. There's a big difference. The lightest punishment means that this is the lightest punishment, as if there's nothing lighter than that. A very light punishment doesn't mean this is the lightest. And the Rebbe, as I mentioned once before, didn't want extreme words to be written. So if you write, this is the lightest punishment, it's very extreme. This is the lightest thing possible. So the Rebbe changed it to Einish Kal B'Yos. It's a very light punishment. And then the other words the Rebbe changed, instead of the whole idea that the Eibishter made them said to make a hole in his ear, because like we see B'chush, that women pierce their ears to put in jewelry, the Rebbe changed it to these words. V'at kedei kach, this idea that it's a very light punishment, so much so, shehoyu regilim lirtzeya ha'ezem yirtzeina matev, they was accustomed that they would pierce their ears with their own goodwill, bichdei loses bahem nezem, in order to put a earring into it. And then he dash and he wrote Anoshim, Venoshim, Bonim Uvonis. Men, women, boys and girls. And the Rebbe writes a Maramokim in Parsha Kisiso, Kapitel Lamed Beis, Posik Beis and Gimel. So here, instead of bringing a raya that it's not such a terrible thing to pierce your ears, from the fact that women pierce their ears, he brought a raya from Chumash. That in Chumash we see clearly that people used to have earrings, which means they pierce their ears. And in Chumash we see it was the women, Bosnin Nesheichem, B'neichem of Neseichem, your wives, your sons and your daughters. And then the next pasuk we see that they took off the earrings from their own ears. That means that the men also had earrings. So this is the best raya, that this is something that is very light and it's not really considered a punishment. So we see how the Rebbe was medayik, that it shouldn't be just a raya from Stam because people do it, but the raya from Chumash, from the way the pasuk writes it in this week's Parsha Kisiso.